We are going to open up with a statement. Certain elements in high offices, shall we say, seem to think that this show is a lot different than what it represents. Where terrorists and whatnot was some of the things that were labelled, which led to a certain incident on Monday where people were tracking me, which failed. But THI, for those new, or those that want to listen anyway, is not a show that tells you to overthrow governments, but to work with them. To have empathy with some of them operating under the system that they are not in control of. You might think they are, but they're not. The show that doesn't tell you to not pay taxes, or it doesn't tell you to not get a driver's licence or apply for private sovereignty either, because that can get you arrested. Yes, Miss Von Wright. And it's a show that doesn't tell you to threaten the police or use common law in their courts, as again, that can get you into trouble and also arrested. But it is a show that does tell you not to be violent in any way, shape or form. A show that tells you to think, understand and comprehend matters for yourselves. A show that empowers people. A show that encourages all to come together to fix things. And that, my listeners, makes you and me a massive target. Massive target. They're on overdrive at the moment. Big time. You'll have seen it in the group. Agents running amok in our group, and also the whole of the alt media. Why? They are crumbling is why. And they've not only lost the narrative in the alt media, they've lost it in the mainstream also. Be vigilant at all times now. Watch your backs. Beware of people friending you and asking you odd questions or stating misleading narratives. So why are we under so much attack? Because we rumbled their games and plans is why. We spoke the truth. We got like-minded people together, thinking and acting in a different way. We're not violence-based. And when you combine all that, it's a powerful tool against tyranny. And they can't divide, which is what they're all about. They want us all distracted. They want us all divided and arguing, immersed in their creative dramas, but most learned to step back and away from the bullshittery. Again, that terrifies those who think they're in control. Their programs, projects, adverts, subliminals, banking, finance, assets and control are all whittling away. And all they have left is intimidation and threats. We have taught compassion, caring and sharing, cooperative, not competitive, got people from all over the world to become friends and learn from each other. As we all find out, we're far more similar than society has led us to believe. Got many of you thinking in a common sense, which is rather rare, as we all know, in a way that doesn't invoke revenge, threats or violence in any way. And that is the biggest threat ever to their system. People being better versions of themselves in an empowered way. Next piece we're going to go on to is appointing leaders. Some still are a bit confused over it. Appointing leaders and their roles. It's up to each group to appoint a leader of the group and 2 admins, plus an added admin, which is either Holly or Ra, in a monitoring only role. They're not there to lead your group or to participate in any things that come up within your group, only as a support for me, and should any issues arise, they can be messaged and they will help you. Now, a leader is not required to do all the tasks related to their group or page. It's all about sharing the responsibility, and leaders are not there to rule, only to guide, remember. Next thing, couple of questions that come up. Why doesn't Trump mention the Manor World Holding Trust? Good question. Has he mentioned it directly? No. Why? Safety. We're under enough threat as it is. That will just add to it. He's under threat also, as you'll find out later. But what will Trump, if Trump mentions the Manor World Holding Trust, what does it change for our group? Nothing. But he has, on several interviews since he received the letter from Kim about the sovereignty, has he not mentioned sovereignty of America several times? Why would he do that unless he'd received that letter from Kim? It's not a normal thing to say, is it? So in essence, he has in some ways, but not directly. And another question that came was asked to somebody else and was passed on to me is Thomas setting up these Facebook groups in some way as a ruse, whereby he only created these groups as an experiment for people to just get on together and no funds will actually arrive? Now, the answer to this is people who ask that are blinded by money only, not particularly interested in life skills of getting along with people. And again, that is service to self attitude and why humanity is in such a mess. Now, we can blame governments and cabal all we like, but just look at the issues that has come up by creating a few groups globally, which was for your benefit, not mine. And people asking people to join together, and there's chaos, egos going array, bitterness, backstabbing, cliques and mischief all developed. Do people not see that's helping the cabal? Some people will say we want to run things ourselves. We don't need government. And look what's happened. Despite all the teachings in this show of how to be, think or act, if we can't get it right, what chance do the rest have? And then we had the case this week of people putting 2 and 2 together and making up their own numbers. Because as stated on Randy's show last week, it's not about the money. And some, predictably, at this point have jumped on it. Now, despite going to somewhat great lengths and time to explain everything, which some people still accuse us of not, it kind of beggars belief, really. But proof will never be accepted by many, as too many don't want the truth. it's, it's often said, oh, you can't handle the truth, and people reject against it. But when they're given it, too many are making comments that suggest they're not interested in truth at all. And it's battling with themselves. These people are weak. They have no inner strength, and I'll cover why later on. But they spent no time developing themselves, and essentially are just harvesting energy and drama off others. Maybe they won't like that statement. My answer would be why? Because I said the truth. Then someone made the comment, wasn't necessarily a niggling comment. We are trying to prove to others Manor World Holding Trust exists. And my question is, why? Kim and I put out information for those that want to listen or hear. But neither of us are here to sell the trust. What are we actually selling? Now, it's clear to all now, particularly given the Randy show, the alt media is riddled with agents, miscreants, and never do anythings. They won't even allow even me, with all my knowledge, to go on their shows, never mind promoting Manor World Holding Trust. Now, I rarely big myself up. It's not what I'm about, which appears to gall some people with agendas, and neither does Randy Morgan's either. How many invites do either of us get, with all of our vast knowledge, to go on other people's shows? Wouldn't you think one or both of us would have been on more shows by now? And the Sell My Book crew, Blue Chickens, Wilcock and Corey, and Steele can go on spouting their bullshit willy-nilly, and people say nothing. And therein lies the problem here. It's not me, it's not Kim, it's not Randy, it's not Alan. All of us have given the people vast amounts of our time to help you all, and all we get is ridiculous comments, misdirected statements, and accused of scamming, which is a classic, as people found out this week. For Bubba and his crew, scam means a dishonest scheme and a fraud. Now, for it to be a dishonest scheme, one must gain something from it, should you not? Well, Kim's gained nothing from it. So it's the most ridiculous scam I've ever heard that you don't make anything off. And I've gained nothing from it either. And I've worked at it for only half the time Kim has. Now, I did reluctantly eventually bow to members' pressure to have a Patreon. But that is compensation for my time and the vast amounts of energy I put into these shows and the times I help people within the group. Helped 2 people privately this week. Suddenly their lives feel different. That's what it's all about for me. Now, the vast majority of people, as I know, are more than happy, but there's always the do-nothings in life people, whose only goal is to drag others down. They, by and large, envy. And that's the kicker. Insecurity, low-level mindset. It is these people who hold humanity back. Now, Tank charges certain fees on his site, which I don't approve of, and I have stated on previous shows. But it's Tank's site, and it's Tank's choice what he chooses to do with his site. It's not mine. But you see, that gives certain people an avenue and a wedge to then accuse Kim and I of running a scam. And yet neither Kim or I are getting any of those fees, tax charges. And yet people will just roll us into it. Not because they particularly believe it, but because it gives them an out from doing something themselves. And it's the same dilemma. People scream for sovereignty, but the minute you state you have to do something, oh no, someone else will fix or do that. It's that dualistic thing again. Now, the people who really bother to listen will have understood clearly when I said it's not all about the money. Because it's not. If you really understood the compensation for money, life force energy, then you would get it. But for those who have ears but don't listen, I will explain clearly again. Money is a tool. It's also a control system. And it's also become a god to many people, doing all kinds of heinous types of things just to make money. Organ harvesting children being a prime example. It's beyond belief. Money in and of itself has no value. It's pieces of paper with numbers on it that they ascribe as being of value. Not we, they. Because if it was we could all draw the $100 bills and just use them. Clearly we're not. Now, can it help our current situation? Absolutely. But it's only going to help it if our mindsets are correct. And clearly, many are not. And what will happen with wrong mindsets, the money will get wasted and squandered on self-serving needs and not the needs for the all. Big difference. So, neither Kim or I are in this for the money. Well, we would have quit a long time ago. We have far more important tasks to do individually and collectively that will have a far bigger impact on this planet than money will ever do. Now, we both want the trust's funds out and people doing the projects, none more so than Kim. So we can move away from clowns, agents, the people who want proof upon proof upon proof upon proof upon proof and still can't make their minds up. Service to self people, and we never do anything. And on to far more rewarding levels of work for us personally and also collectively. Now, some of the service to self people who were in the group, a few more have been removed this week for being involved with David Ray and Team Bubba. But as a kind of reminder, this is a recent document. It's a new one. There was previous in 2017 of who these people are getting involved with. And this is taken from a recent court document. Defendant David Ray with a shell company with a bank account which is located in Hong Kong, China, which was used to launder money. Isn't that a scam? Oops. And it was further part of the conspiracy that defendant David Ray, who runs Team Bubba, in turn laundered the proceeds by one of several means, including but not limited to transferring the funds through shell corporations, calling the proceeds payments for failed sham joint venture agreements, and investing the money in real estate abroad. Now, in and around December 2018, defendant Aaron Williamski told CC1 about defendant David Ray and suggested CC1 use defendant David Ray to launder CC1's Medicare fraud proceeds. Oops. Thereafter, CC1 contacted David Ray, and David Ray agreed to launder CC1 proceeds, with the intent to conceal and disguise the nature, location, source, ownership and control of property believed to be the proceeds of specified unlawful activity, and to promote specified unlawful activity, and did knowingly conduct an attempt to conduct a financial transaction that affected interstate and or foreign commerce involving property represented to be the proceeds of specified unlawful activity, and transferred $39,400 in United States currency from his bank account in Hong Kong. Oops. You see, one can shout scam and show no evidence and prove nothing, and one can deliver evidence and prove everything. One asked the other to come on a show and provide transparency. One played hide and seek and ran away, along with Lacey Eckhart, Madeleine Natane, Andrea Reid, Ruben DeCloit and Jew Shift, amongst others. A scammer accusing others of doing what they're doing themselves. You know what? Those masks just don't work like they used to, do they? They just don't. Right, let's get into some news bits. A federal judge has partly blocked Donald Trump's plan to fund construction of a wall along the US-Mexico border, and a preliminary injunction which was issued last Friday immediately halts a $1 billion transfer of Pentagon counter-drug funding to cover expansions and enhancements of the border barriers. Now, the court also appears to jeopardise another $1.5 billion of the $8.1 billion the administration planned to use for border construction. However, Oakland, California-based US District Court Judge Haywood Gilliams ordered only limits construction in specific border areas in Texas and Arizona, and does not prevent the administration from tapping other funding sources to advance those projects. Yeah, until he comes up with more funding, and then the Democrats complain, and then it goes to court again and they block it again. And round we go. Now, Gilliam said the administration's plan to transfer counter-drug funding to finance the wall appeared to be unconstitutional. Really? Because the legal authority the administration was relying on applied only to unforeseen needs. Really? Unforeseen needs. I would call child trafficking, child sex slavery, child ritual abuse, child sacrifice and organ harvesting unforeseen needs, would you not? And people with human skins but not underneath coming through. Is that not unforeseen? It's unbelievable. US President again declaring a national emergency because of tensions with Iran, because of the neocon clowns. Swept aside objections from Congress on Friday to complete the sale of over $8 billion worth of weapons to Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and also Jordan. Now, Trump informed congressional committees that it will go ahead with 22 military sales to the Saudis, United Arab Emirates and also Jordan, which infuriated lawmakers by circumventing a long-standing precedent for congressional review of major weapons sales. Now, members of Congress had been blocking sales of offensive military equipment to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates for months, angry about the huge civilian toll from their air campaign in Yemen. Interesting. As well as human rights abuses. The Democrats' interest in human rights abuses. Comedy act, except it's not really funny. As well as the murder of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi at a Saudi consulate in Turkey. Now, lawmakers and congressional aides warned earlier this week that Trump, frustrated with Congress holding up weapons deals, including the sale of bombs to Saudi Arabia, was considering using a loophole in arms control law to go ahead by declaring a national emergency. Whilst I don't agree with selling weapons to anywhere in the Middle East for that matter, I noticed the Democrats don't complain when we're sending billions of aid and weapons to another country in the Middle East. Why? What's the difference? I don't think, and this is my opinion, Trump wants to sell those weapons at all. But because of the strangulation of the American economy to a point of bankruptcy, we have no options but to consider all sales. This is what the clowns are doing. Rather sad and story yet again. This Los Angeles, of people just not caring enough, which is the main problem we have on this planet. People not caring enough. A 102-year-old woman has been evicted from her long-time residence in unincorporated Ladera Heights in Los Angeles County, so the landlord's daughter can move in instead. Well, this is according to an eviction notice the woman received. Thelma Smith was given notice that she must vacate the single-family home where she's resided for the last 30 years. And landlord said that they were ending her month-to-month lease with her daughter who's graduating from law school. And the dwelling is needed as her principal place of residence. Now, they gave the woman 3 months to get out, and under Los Angeles Rent Stabilization Ordinance, a landlord can legally evict a tenant to accommodate a relative's housing needs. But the law indicates that if the units are of compatible housing, the last person who moved in would be the first forced to leave. And that regulation is meant to protect low-paying tenants from being targeted. And yet they're throwing a 102-year-old woman out. You know, we all know what's going to happen next. You know, people of that age don't like upheaval and change. It's just wrong. Surely they could have found another place. You know, at 102, she wasn't going to go on for much longer, is she? Sadly, and people are throwing her out on the street. It's beyond shocking, really. Mrs May confirmed on Friday that she will resign as party leader on the 7th of June in the UK, but will continue as PM while a leadership contest takes place. Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt with a C, Rory Stewart, Health Secretary Matt Hancock, former Foreign Clown Secretary Boris Johnson, and former Work and Pensions Secretary, who's quite a snake, Esther McVey, are those leading the chase. Message for the British people. If you think for 1 second that May leaving will improve things, you are not thinking correctly, or particularly awake thinking. It's not going to make a blind bit of difference. You know, everyone's heard of the deep state now in America. It's been covered extensively, particularly by Q and others. Well, If you think America's the only place with a deep state, you need to look closer to home, because their deep state over there is worse than here. Everything the UK government does is run by MI5, MI6. All of it. And the Blue Dragon Group, ran by the former entity known as Hillary Clinton. Every newspaper, the government, radio, TV, all ran by MI5, MI6 over there. And the Fabian Society. Look it up and go and see the names who went to it. Don't believe me? Go and check up Tony Blair, former MI5/6 agent. That's where they all come from. Tanzania. It's a country we haven't mentioned. We seem to get around the world. And yet again, these same names come up, a bit like From Russia with Love 4. Certain names, certain groups, certain organisations playing games. And the civil society organisations in Tanzania have welcomed the decision of the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, Matthew Mithgumbi, to bring an immediate stop to all ongoing GM field trials taking place in the country. So it's another country is now blocking GMOs. And these are under the auspices of the Water Efficient Maize for Africa project, which includes Monsanto and the Gates Foundation. Oh my. Satan and Satan himself, Gates. And also National Research, quote unquote. We all know what research centres are. And this decision has since been verified by the newly appointed Minister of Agriculture, Japheth Hasunga, and in a report issued by the Ministry, the Permanent Secretary ordered with immediate effect the cessation of all field trial operations and the destruction of all the remnants of the trials at the Makatupura Centre in Dodoma, where trials were actually taking place. Now, this decision has come after the Tanzania Agriculture Research Institute released the results of the trials without the necessary authorization when it invited certain members of the public, including the well-known pro-GM lobbyist Mark Linus, to witness how well, quote unquote, the GM crops were performing, which it wasn't. And the Agriculture Research also hosted a recent excursion to the trial site by the Parliamentary Committee on Food and Agriculture, and unauthorised access to trial sites indicates collusion between biotech lobbyists and GM researchers, all paid for by the Gates Foundation. I tell you, the damage they've done in Africa and India is a global disgrace, and not enough is being highlighted. You know, instead of writing stupid blogs accusing people of being scammers when they're not, you'd be far better wasting or using your energy highlighting clans like this that are killing thousands of people. Now, Mark Linus, who's the GM lobbyist, unethical social media hype, uses Tanzania's smallholder farmers in an instrumentalist way as a means to justify the introduction of GMO crops in the country, claiming that Tanzanians are poor and hungry. They'll be even more poor and hungry with GMO. It's got no nutrients or vitamins. More issues of banking fraud. This time in, I think it's Mexico. Yes, Mexico. And also Texas. Kathy Mashier called Marcela Zavala Taylor, who was a banker of 9 years at Mexico's Monex Casa de Bolsa, to get cash for contractors building her retirement home in San Miguel de Allende. And typically Zavala would wire money or dispatch her assistant Juan on his motorcycle with an envelope full of pesos. Now, Monex, the bank with $5.2 billion in assets and operations in the US, was kind of woven into the lives of Mashier and the 10,000 other Americans who have moved to San Miguel de Allende. Now, the transfer didn't take place. Juan didn't show, and Zavala didn't return calls, and Kathy and Jim Mashier discovered that their total nest egg was gone altogether. And when the Mashiers and other San Miguel expatriates met with Monex officials in early January, the bankers told some of them that about $40 million was missing from as many as 158 accounts, many belonging to English-speaking Americans. 40 million gone. They know where it's gone. I told you they would start harvesting the bank money, people's accounts. Now, a dozen people were interviewed by Bloomberg News say that bank statements Zavala sent them purporting to show full accounts were apparently falsified by the bank. And most say the bank has told them little since they filed complaints, and some say the bank Monex tried to settle for far less than the balances owed. When they told us we only had 6 pesos, which is about 32 cents in our accounts, I felt sick to my stomach. And since then, they have not dealt with us in good faith. Now, the scandal has upended the expatriate community in San Miguel, which is a city of 69,000, about 500 miles south of McAllen, Texas, and is mostly of retirees. And they have to navigate a society with fewer legal and financial protections than they get in the US. And fraud is becoming quite common, according to Kevin Carr, who's the founder of financial technology firm Finerden in Washington, D.C. I'll have to check that up. And formerly the US Department of, I think that's FinCEN, isn't it? Let me cover that. Oh well. Departments of Treasury primary representative in Mexico. Mexican authorities try to prosecute these cases, but often they aren't successful. Now, last year there were 7.3 million complaints of fraud involving about 18.9 billion pesos, according to CONDUCEF, Mexico's consumer protection agency. They're just looting the whole banks to keep the illusion going. 7.3 million complaints of fraud in 1 year. Now, that's more than double the number of claims in 2014. And Monex said in a statement that it's looking into accusations against Zavala, and legal action is continuing in the case, and details cannot be disclosed as to not hinder the investigation. And said the bank is working with clients and has settled their complaints with 70% of the money. Just 30% just gone. People have money in the bank. Bank says it's gone, and here's 70 cents on the dollar, just like that. Told you, bank of under the mattress seems a far better prospect to me. Following Netanyahu's fake victory in the election, unfortunately for him, Israeli lawmakers have voted to dissolve the parliament after Netanyahu failed to form a coalition government this week, and the vote will trigger a fresh election which will be held on the 17th of September. Mr. Nutty Asshole was unable to reach a deal for a fresh right-wing coalition, Sieg Heil, following last month's election. And at the start of the impasse was a military conscription bill governing exemptions for ultra-Orthodox Jewish seminary students. And this is the first time in Israel's history that a Prime Minister designate has failed to form a coalition. Oops.